Coming from the far right, Javier Milei won a convincing victory in yesterday's presidential election with a promise to sharply cut government spending and tackle the country's worst economic crisis in decades.
As we mentioned, taking a chainsaw to the state, slashing spending.
At times compared to Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro, and former U.S. President Donald Trump, who congratulated Milei on his victory, writing, quote, "Make Argentina great again" on his Truth Social platform.
Make Argentina great again. Viva la libertad, carajo!
Who was this figure capturing the American media's attention and drawing comparisons to Trump? We traveled to Buenos Aires to talk to some of his supporters and to his critics to find out more.
If I have to describe Milei in 3 words, I'm going to say violence,
es tajante,
boldness, and mercy.
y es visionario.
He's strong, he's not afraid.
He's a complete libertarian. Get rid of tuition-free public education, wants to replace the Argentinian peso with the US dollar.
Siendo que soy el primer presidente liberal libertario de la historia, no solo de Argentina, sino de la historia, está claro que las condiciones para cuales se diera la situación en la cual una persona con mis características llegue a ser presidente no son condiciones normales de presión y temperatura. Es decir, era evidente que tenía que ser un caos. Y lo que yo tengo que hacer es adaptarme a los hechos.
He's an economist. We know him as an economist prior to his candidacy.
Creo que la cosa que más nos gustó ahora que hago memoria, esta forma de no predicar, no ser un político convencional, de prometer, de todo eso que... No, el día que asumió se paró y dijo, el país está así, le falta esto, debe esto. Y creo que eso es importante para nosotros saber qué es lo que había pasado.
The public enemy of President Milei are the politicians. You know, he has a whole performative repertoire. He has rituals and symbols that are constant reminders of his values, freedom, and his purpose, the chainsaw. His inspiration on reducing deficit, kicking out politicians.
Despite being portrayed by the American news media as Argentina's Donald Trump, experts in the country told us the reality is not so simple.
Yo creo que si uno compara la situación argentina con la de Estados Unidos, pone de manifiesto la diferencia argentina, es el nivel de radicalidad que tiene la experiencia de Milei, comparada con la de Trump, que también es radical, ¿no? Pero yo creo que la de Milei es mucho más radical y se da en un contexto institucional mucho más débil, por lo tanto puede ser mucho más impactante.
First of all, he's much more libertarian in the way of thinking. It's not so nationalist in that sense.
Milei is a completely outsider.
But Milei and Trump do share a fundamentally populist appeal.
Por un lado, su programa es claramente de derecha, pro mercado, pro monopolios, es autoritario, como es el programa de Trump. Y al mismo tiempo tiene un llamado al pueblo que es más parecido al de Perón. Todo eso que se fueron acumulando como disconformidades de la sociedad durante los últimos 15 años y que no fue visto por la política, Milei logra llamarlo y reconocerlo y hace aparecer un pueblo de la misma manera que Perón hizo aparecer un pueblo.
Where there is a need, a right is born.
Aravita cried in front of the crowd of shirtless people and summarized in that enormous phrase the profound meaning of social policies for every Peronist government.
El modelo de la casta se construye y se edifica sobre una frase nefasta que dice, donde hay una necesidad, nace un derecho. Y en ese sentido, el problema es que si hay un derecho, alguien lo tiene que pagar. Y si alguien lo tiene que pagar, el problema es que estamos con necesidades infinitas y estamos con recursos escasos.
Peronism is losing his relation with the lower class because of a couple of years of economic crisis, incomes going down, and then political deception from the party, you know.
I don't think it's possible to transform so radically employment in Argentina in the short term or the medium term, because Even when you don't work for the state, some of your work depends on the state. For example, in my case, I'm a physician. I'm a specialist in pulmonology with focus on lung cancer. I don't currently work for a public hospital, but many of my patients have a social security because they work for the state.
I think if you give too much power to one person, that's a threat to democracy. Maybe we're giving him too much power right now.
In Argentina, democracy crumbles from the inside.
So far, I don't think that Milei is a threat to democracy, but his understanding about what democracy encompasses is quite flexible.
El mundo separarlo entre las democracias liberales y los autócratas. Y yo quiero que Argentina esté del lado de las democracias liberales y no quiero saber nada de estar con los autócratas.
He thinks international relations pretty much in the size of the United States, and I think he's waiting for Donald Trump to win the next election, and that's going to have a better relation within this government and the US government.
I think that the United States has lacked a project for the region apart from securitizations and immigration.
The expectation is Milei could solve some of our economic problems.
This libertarian wave happened at the USA, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in Brazil. Why not to us?
I think we have a lot of hope because we need a change. Really, we need a change.
Argentina comes from a bad place, and I think he wants to change it. I'm not sure if he's doing it the right way. It's just that I want him to do it the right way, obviously.
Tenemos las ganas y la esperanza de que con él las cosas puedan llegar a cambiar. Pero también sabemos que es un proceso largo, ya que fueron tantos años de hacer las cosas de una manera poco correcta, que ahora hay que tener mucha paciencia.
It's a very uncertain time now. We go to sleep with one reality and when wake up this morning is another.